So thank you again for joining, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's a pleasure to be talking here. And thank you for that introduction. As mentioned, I am the CEO of a virtual events platform called Mood-Up, but I'm also a long-term veteran of the VR industry. Way back in 1994, I started the Virtual Reality Association and have done many world firsts in creating the immersive internet, including building the first 3D e-commerce platform in the late 90s, the first commercial 360-degree virtual tour viewer for real estate for the internet back then as well. And from 2000 onwards, I built the first Metaverse. That is something that converted the entire web into a seamless virtual world where you could meet people. Way ahead of its time, considering, but now we're in the days where the metaverse and virtual reality are things that are pretty much consumer off-the-shelf products that you can engage in now. And over the last 7 years, I've been building a platform with a great team to enable 3D on the web, in the learning and training space with a company called LearnBright, and also in the 3D event space for events and meetings with Mood-Up. So we've been working with Fortune 500 and Global 1000 companies. And today, I want to share with you how you can get into the metaverse and also an essential 6-point checklist that can really help guide you in there. So there are 3 areas that we're seeing being discussed at the moment under the same banner, under the same term as Metaverse. And those 3 things are essentially game-based and entertainment worlds, Roblox, Fortnite, Sandbox, Decentraland, things like that. And they're places where the audience is already there and brands are trying to advertise to them, like Nike is doing presentations in these games to try and influence people into engaging with their product. The second area, which is also being labeled under the term Metaverse, is the blockchain, NFTs, DAOs, the sale of virtual land and virtual goods. And the third area is the Metaverse for business. And this is where the 3D technology is providing real value to small to medium-sized businesses, studios, large enterprises, and other organizations. And my vision, and I think this is pretty certain given my decades of experience in this industry, ultimately all 3 of those are on a convergence path in the coming years. And that will ultimately redefine the web. Some are calling this Web 3, some are calling this Web 3.0, and essentially we'll see a culmination of these different use cases come together. But for now, for this talk, I'd like to give you my definition of what the metaverse is. The current web is based on text and images and audio and video. And the next evolution of the web is based on real-time shared experiences. That is within 3D layers, spaces, and worlds. Think of it like websites, but inhabited by people. And these are all linked together to form an interconnected virtual universe, which is the metaverse. Now, many people think that you need to have a virtual reality headset to get into the metaverse, and this couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, VR is great, and I'm a big advocate for virtual reality. But many companies have tried to start with virtual reality first. So they require you to have a VR headset. And what that does is really makes a huge, what I call the VR chasm. It's a gap in the market. You require people to have a virtual reality headset to install apps and get connected in that way before they can even find out what the metaverse is about. So the VR chasm is we've got everyone with their existing devices today, mobile phones, tablets, laptops, Chromebooks, and then we've got people with VR headsets. So there's this gap in between. And the best way to kind of resolve that is to create a cross-device bridge, right? So the same metaverse experience should be able to be experienced on a mobile, on a tablet, laptop, etc., and in VR. So any metaverse platform that doesn't actually support all those devices is not really a platform for the future. But by supporting all these devices, having a 3-dimensional experience that you can go into on any of the devices or in VR, you create this bridge. You allow people to get on board, start to explore, and find out the value of what these 3D real-time spaces are like, and then start to engage and experiment with virtual reality. Another important consideration is if you're making 3D available everywhere, you also need to be considerate of bandwidth and where people are connecting from and be able to support that. One of the great things about the technology as it stands today is that every browser that you can use has 3D capabilities in it. And this is absolutely extraordinary because way back in the early days of the internet, we had trouble with video. There were different codecs, different plugins you needed to install to be able to have a successful video experience. Once video became pervasive across every device, suddenly it took off magically everywhere because you could be assured that if somebody went to watch a video, they'd be able to view it. The same goes with 3D now. 3D is accessible in every browser, so you can deploy and know that your audience is going to be able to engage in that time. And in fact, 3D is the next media type. Before the internet, we already had written words, audio, video, and images and photographs, and we digitized all of them, put them online. But there's another media type, which is 3D, and 3D is relatively young. It's really only been around as long as computers have. And before that, we had maybe architecture or sculpture as a way to represent 3D, but now we have a 3D media type. And the beautiful thing about 3D as a media type is that it's a superset of all the other media types. Text, images, video, audio, all can be consumed within that 3D media type. And we're just at the very beginning of this. This is at the foothills of a huge journey ahead where 3D becomes a new media type for human communication. And that is terribly exciting. So 3D as a media type is good, but also we can now interact with it in the metaverse with other people. And this means it feels way more immersive and it's also more immediate. And this is in contrast to how it feels to be using the internet today, which is more asynchronous or consumption of material. So the real paradigm shift here for the metaverse is that it's a shift to participation. People can participate with any device. They can access it on reasonable bandwidth connections. And we're shifting from this kind of static internet with resources that we consume to the real-time internet. That is where people can jump in, communicate with each other at any point they like. And that also involves persistent spaces. So if you think about getting on, let's say, a Zoom conference call, you'll organize a time for that to happen, you'll book it in the calendar, and you'll all turn up at that time to be in this event. But with the metaverse, you have persistent 3D spaces that are always on. So you can just walk into a room or into a place and actually engage with people there. And you can even leave things in those environments, in those rooms, and they persist. So when you come back, everything's the way you left it. So this is an exciting time to create this real-time and persistent 3D universe on the web. It's really an evolution of the web. And although we might see the metaverse as something that's in the future, something that's coming years ahead, it's actually here right now, which is pretty exciting. And there's a couple of use cases that are being heavily used in business already. And the three main ones are meetings, events, and training. So we're seeing people jump online, especially with the increase in remote work, the ability to jump in a room together and feel co-present, to feel that you're there together. This is being used for workshops, for escape rooms, for whiteboarding sessions. Essentially, people can get in and collaborate together in these experiences. Again, on any device. Somebody could join on a mobile phone while somebody else is on their tablet, another person on their laptop, and somebody else using VR, but they're all in the same space, able to communicate and collaborate with each other. The second really big use case that's been growing, because of the pandemic, a lot of events moved online, and that's really grown that space. So it's allowed people to jump online and hang around in virtual events, have speakers, expos, networking sessions, etc. And what we found is now with the pandemic tailing off in some countries, it's actually still persisting. So people want to have more of these immersive 3D experiences, regardless of the pandemic. There is a desire to create these more engaging experiences online rather than just watching a video stream. And the real benefit of that is the audience is no longer invisible. And this is what we've seen with typical events. The audience is resigned to a chat on the right-hand side, or maybe some thumbnail pictures of them. But with metaverse events, everyone has their own avatar. They can jump in, they can see each other, they can talk to each other, and the people, the audience, become part of the experience. And this is what we miss from the real-world events. There's also, for the event space, way more surface area for sponsors. Instead of a banner at the top of a video, you actually have a full 3D expo hall or trade show hall where sponsors can show their wares. And they can be things that you wouldn't normally put in an expo hall even. I've seen exhibitions with huge earth-moving equipment, for example, or architecture buildings on display at life size. And you wouldn't be able to bring those into a real-world exhibition because they'd just be too large or too impossible to bring in. And on top of that, you've got huge increase in engagement. So people being attentive and relating to what's being presented and having stronger memories of it. Which leads to the third major area that's really beneficial is training. So we're seeing the virtual reality and metaverse spaces being used for training, which is much more effective. Training's condensed into shorter timeframes with higher retention. That's being used in safety training. It's using in soft skills for people to learn negotiation or communication skills with AI chatbots. Really exciting areas that these metaverse platforms are now bringing to light. And there's a huge opportunity ahead, which I want to highlight, which is that this is an opportunity for new category leaders to emerge. We all know the big video platforms and social networking platforms, but in the metaverse, this is new territory. So there's an opportunity for people to build new businesses, create new opportunities, and become market leaders. So it's like the internet all over again, which is super exciting. So the real question is if you're going to be a part of it and what can you do to be a part of that experience? Now, I mentioned before there's a checklist of 6 items that you should consider if you're jumping into a metaverse platform. And if you don't satisfy these 6 points, you're probably engaging with something that's going to no longer have a future-proof path. So the 6 points are that you have to consider data privacy and security. That needs to be a part of whatever platform you choose to engage with. And it needs to support diversity and inclusion. That is also important. So look for platforms that support lots of different avatar styles, combinations, and also that support many languages and different ways to communicate. That's also important from an inclusivity perspective. You'll also want to be looking for the use of open standards. So we all know that we have images in MP4 format, images in JPEG and PNG, we have videos in MP4, we have MP3 files for audio. So 3D is the same. And there's a few different 3D file formats to consider that are open standards like GLTF, FBX, OBJ files. These, as long as they can be used, you can start to bring in your own content. So any metaverse platform needs to be able to bring in existing content, images, audio, video, and 3D content all into the 3D environment. So if any metaverse platform is blocking you from doing that, again, that's not going to be a future-proof metaverse solution. And of course, which is vitally important, is that it works on all devices. Phones, tablets, laptops, Chromebooks in the education space, and all of the VR and AR headsets. Now, you might not be aware, but all of the VR and AR headsets on the market do come with a web browser of some kind, and that allows you to visit web pages that can be switched into immersive mode, which means you can visit a web page, then suddenly make that 3D experience that surrounds you. And this is just incredibly accessible material. And again, knowing that that'll work on all the other browsers on other devices means one person could be in there using their mobile phone and engaging that way, another on their laptop, seeing their avatar walking around, and another person in VR with that whole experience life size in front of them. And all of these people can interact with each other across device. So that is where the kind of tipping point or mass audience coming into the platform or to the metaverse is really going to shift the way the internet grows. So that for me is what I mentioned earlier, the VR chasm. This is one of the biggest accelerators for the metaverse to take off. And it's not something happening, years down the track. It's all available right now. So this is really, really super exciting. The 5th point is that it should be customizable. So you should be able to build your own 3D environment. You should be able to decorate it, a lot like you build your own website today. So if you can build your own website, you can put your own content in it, you're in full control of that, what you want to present to the world and who you want to let in. The same goes for a 3D metaverse site. You should be able to customize it. You should be able to control who you link to and who links to you. So think of it like the web. You build a website and you can then link to a few other pages, maybe your friends, maybe associates, maybe other businesses, and you choose who the links go to, rather than it being a flat landscape where somebody buys land next to you and you are not in control of your neighbors. The future of the metaverse is a hyperlinked, hyperdimensional universe of worlds. So just like all websites link to each other in arbitrary ways decided by the owners of those sites, so too will the metaverse be a collection of virtual worlds and spaces that link to each other, but decided by the owner of those spaces. So that's the future of where the metaverse will head. And that brings me to point 6, which is actually choosing to be future-proof. And using web technology is a great way to ensure that there's the capacity to be future-proof. If you go down the paths of using something you need to install or apps that require a certain type of device or a powerful computer to engage in that metaverse experience, that's probably not going to be a future-proof solution because there's too many dependencies. Again, using open standards, using web as a way to engage in the metaverse will mean that you can constantly evolve what you're doing. You can publish your changes and they're instantly available to everyone. But even more important than that is the ability to integrate with all of the other services that we already have on the web today. And that's what an open platform and a web-based platform will really allow you to do. So those are the 6 points. Again, just to quickly run through them: data privacy and security, diversity and inclusion, open standards, working across all devices. It must be customizable and it needs to be future-proof. These are the things to look for when you're choosing a platform to start engaging in the metaverse. So I really encourage you to start exploring the opportunities surrounding the metaverse, and I hope you'll join me on this really exciting journey ahead. I look forward to seeing you in the metaverse at some time very, very soon.